Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the early wedge. We've got the Wyndham coming up. I've got Mike McClure with me. Rick is out of town, I believe, for the next couple of shows, but we'll see him again very, very soon. Mike, how you doing today? Listen, we both had quite the sweat on Sunday, but didn't come through.
Didn't come through. Ended up okay in DFS still, fortunately, which was good. But yeah, anytime you get a Sunday sweat, and for like people in the early wedge community here, anytime you get a Sunday sweat at a tournament like that with multiple guys in contention, you're doing something right, and it is a lot of fun. And it just kind of reminds you, we've hit a lot. Whether it be the betting side, the DFS side, whatever it may be, it just reminds you how difficult it is to handicap a sport like golf when it comes to truly nailing an outright winner.
A lot of us had Nap, and I just, on the final hole, it looked like he was sizing up, the way, he hit his wedge, he hit his iron shot, and it looked like it was tracking to be like a perfect eagle opportunity. It falls, probably ultimately a few yards short. And that it ends up being the difference, right, Mike? I mean, we don't know that he would have made eagle and tied it up and forced a playoff, but it's things like that when they go your way, you smoke a DFS slate, you hit an outright at long odds, but it's fun. The sweat was fun regardless. And that Sunday show was really fun as well. But we're going to turn the page. We're going to go to Sedgefield Country Club, Mike. Really interesting situation, maybe some narrative shopping with some FedEx Cup points on the line. We see the scorecard here, thanks to Josh. We got only a couple of par fives, a handful of par threes, certainly, and par fours. We talked about it yesterday on the early look. This seems to be a test where you got to be accurate off the tee.
Yeah, you need to be accurate off the tee for sure. And I think that, we always have the debate on distance versus accuracy. It's going to be heavy accuracy this week. Again, for me, I didn't consider distance at all last week. Certainly not considering it at all this week. But looking at this scorecard, I think the thing that should stand out to you instantly is the fact that there are just those two par fives and a lot of par threes, which tells me personally, bogey avoidance is going to come into play in terms of like metrics that I care about, and certainly double bogey avoidance, but bogey avoidance in general, not a stat that I use often, but it is one I'm going to be using here when you have this many par threes.
Let me ask you this, because I think most people at this point understand, you want to be accurate off the tee. The mid irons are certainly going to come into play, anything between 100, let's say 175. Not that other shots are not going to come into play, but there's just more exposure to those shots at Sedgefield. Being a good putter on Bermuda in particular, being good out of the rough in Bermuda in particular is something potentially to look at. Are you looking, though, Mike, at around the green play this week?
So I'm really not. And I'll tell you how I'm capturing it. Which it's fun doing these shows, honestly, because it does change every week. And I know that some people just want a general rule set. And the beauty of this game is there is no general rule set. And from a modeling standpoint, there's no real true correct way to do it. But I'm not using any of the official strokes gained around the green or official strokes gained putting this week, like I do at times throughout the year. The way I'm choosing to kind of capture that is I'm still keeping 3-putt avoidance in, which again, I think is a noisy stat for a lot of stops on the tour, but we're in this little stretch where I don't necessarily think that it is. And then I'm combining some of that with the bogey avoidance and double bogey avoidance. And I'm hoping that I'm capturing a little bit of some of that around the green play, some of that putting, but I'm choosing to do it a little differently than the field might. But that's how I'm doing it this week. And that's how I have been for the last few tournaments. It's been working quite well for me. But 3-putt avoidance, bogey avoidance, and a little bit of double bogey avoidance. I'm going that route more than the true strokes gained route.
Okay, very interesting. And we've got a lot of people in the chat. I do have to give a few people a shout out here. So Japan was going to bet on Emiliano Grillo anyway, because he is truly Emiliano Grillo's biggest fan. So he says Grillo plus 8,000, 1.5 units. See you at the pay window. But I do have to mention, I put it in the SportsLine Discord yesterday. We talked about it on the early edge this morning with Mike McClure. And I started a thread late last night around 10 o'clock when the DK odds came out about, just players I was looking at, but particularly Emiliano Grillo, who at the time was 75. He's 80 in some places. Mike, just let's let the cat out of the bag a little bit. If you missed the early edge this morning, I did give out a play on Emiliano Grillo at plus 8,000. Any thoughts on that?
I am in full agreement there. See, I kind of mentioned on the early edge, I hadn't run some of the numbers yet, but anticipated certainly being in the 50-1 range or better, and can confirm that we are there. So I think there is a ton of value on Grillo here. I have him firmly inside the top 10 overall in terms of overall win equity and rating and everything. For me, I have Grillo inside the top 10. So I think that when we talk about pricing and the price range is coming up, there's some interesting that I will point out from my data set, but Grillo is definitely the outlier in the top 10.
Yeah, we're going to get to pricing in just a second. Mike Miller, who's clearly not just a fan of this show, thank you, Mike, but also a fan of the early edge because he has a Junior Caminero home run parlayed with Emiliano Grillo to win at plus 32,560. Would be amazing. I say early edge because that was one of our 3 home run props. Mike, go ahead.
Mike Miller was also an elite 3-point shooter, had a nice career in the NBA. It could be the same guy here because that looks like a made threes parlay, where you have like Mike Miller 6 made threes and 30 points parlayed together. That's what this Grillo win really looks like to me.
Also, his moniker for the M is purple, and we all know Mike Miller went to Florida. He was a Gator, so maybe it's not the same blue purple, but it's in the neighborhood. I guess it's not purple for the Gators, but blue either way. Same neighborhood. Mike Miller, thank you for joining the show. All right, Ian Lights Out is in here. Gipper's picks. We got Liddy in here. So many in here, including of course Jeff Stenberg and Joseph Boza. Faustino is in here. Hit the like button if you could. We're going to get to the pricing. I think the pricing is very, very interesting, and I can't wait to ask Mike McClure about it right after this message from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
We're back on the early wedge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. And Josh, if you would, let's bring up the pricing. Because Mike, as I always do before we start this show, I start messing around with some lineups. Just, listen, they might be placeholders. Maybe they're lineups, that I actually end up playing. But it's really just to get a feel for what the pricing looks like, how prohibitive it might be to build the lineup that I want to build. And that's where I want to go with you right now. You can basically do, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but I just wanted to put it out there with Matt Fitzpatrick at the top at 10,600, Keegan Bradley 10.3, Ben Griffin at 10.1. When I was going through building some lineups, I had so much money left over. It's so easy to build lineups in terms of just picking the guys you want.
You can definitely pick guys that you want. I will say that what I wanted to point out, the last couple weeks we've had, a smaller 10K range or whatever at the top. And it seems like we didn't really have a ton of interest there. I think the pricing is correct in that those guys should be where they are. I think that there's reasons you could go play them. And they're all within the top 10 of my model. So that is something that is unique this week. They hadn't always been that way. So in that sense, I think it's going to make things interesting. I do think that ownership will probably concentrate a little bit to Fitzpatrick. The one that I don't know what the field's going to do with is Ben Griffin because he's coming off the 2 missed cuts. And otherwise, he's been a legit top 10 player on the PGA Tour with everyone playing. Like even when Scotty Scheffler plays, the data says he's a top 10 player. So I'm very interested and we'll be watching. I will be on the Wednesday live chat this week, by the way. So we will have a ton of updates to what you and I say here, and more specifically what I say to this, but I am not going to get as much of Keegan. I'm going to buy into Matt Fitzpatrick, and he's probably going to be extremely popular because, as you mentioned, you can essentially play whoever you want.
Yeah. So here's how I think this is going to shake out. I think people are going to say Matt Fitzpatrick, pedigree wise, the best player in this field. We've seen enough of a sample size where we think the old Matt Fitzpatrick is back. I had him at the Open Championship, Mike. And I think I had him at the Scottish Open too. I'm all over Matt Fitzpatrick, but I got to be honest. He's the best in this field. I don't know that he's the guy for this particular course. particularly off the tee. Ben Griffin is also a guy that I think people are going to understand. We can't just look at a couple miscut sample size for him, because first of all, he wasn't that bad in those two events. And second of all, he's Ben Griffin, who was just like storming the field for like a good 2-month span. So I actually think Keegan Bradley's going to be, I'm not saying he's going to be like super low owned, but relative to the other two, I think he's going to be the lowest owned. And Mike, I think I like Keegan the best. When I look at the accuracy metrics and some of the things that kind of we're looking for, whether it's ball striking, mid-iron play, all of those things, even there's some a little around the green play as well. I think Keegan is my guy here, especially if I think he's going to be discounted ownership. So your thoughts on my breakdown from an ownership standpoint? Do you think it's Fitz, Griffin close behind, and then Keegan kind of lagging behind those two?
I think that is likely what happens. Yes. I think early in the week, the sentiment will be still a little lower on Ben Griffin. And I think everyone will continue to talk themselves into playing him a little bit more and kind of forgiving those two missed cuts, one of them being overseas. Yeah. So I would agree that Keegan is the guy that gets squeezed, and it mostly is getting squeezed by Fitzpatrick, though, I would say. I do think that we're not going to see a bunch of people play two 10K guys in the lineup. And when you're picking one or the other, when it's $300 more for the name value of Fitzpatrick, and frankly, the return to form that we've seen over a pretty significant sample size now, I think that it's pretty clear that Fitzpatrick's going to, I don't know if I'm going to say double up Keegan's ownership, but he's going to be more popular for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of my notes here. And, when I look at weighted ball striking, granted, I'm using different sample sizes in terms of rounds, depending on the metric I'm looking at. Mike, I know you kind of sort of mess with the stats, how you want to mess with the stats. And that's sort of how I'm doing it. But when I look at my stats on weighted ball striking, kind of a short sample size, weighted tee to green. When I look at the mid-iron play, which is going to be a longer sample size. When I look at the accuracy, honestly, I'm not saying Keegan is the best of the three necessarily, but he flashes in a way that makes me want to play him. And I don't mind fading all three of these guys. I also don't mind playing Keegan and Griffin in a lineup, especially if Fitz is going to command a lot of ownership. Mike, do you think like the Griffin Keegan build, it's not going to be popular, but is that something you could see yourself doing or your model building?
I'll tell you when we get a little further into the show, but it's very possible that I could get to that. Yes. There are a lot of guys in the 7K range that frankly could be $1,000 more than they are in this field. So yes, I'm going to put a couple in the lineup just real quick. I know I should be more prepared. Busy day with baseball. I think we all you could definitely play the two of them together and build extremely competitive lineups. So yes, it is something that I will consider. I actually would say it might be likely that I'll play 3 lineups. One of my 3 lineups is probably going to have Fitzpatrick and Griffin together.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to do. Can I just tell you, like, we're not going to spend a lot of time on the 6K range, but I'm looking at a little list that I produced before the show, and it's a preliminary list. I'm not going to stick to it. There's 2, 4, 6, 8. I've got like 14 guys in the 6K range that I'm considering. And again, it's the 6K range for a reason. I'll probably end up only playing 4 to 6 of those guys, if that. But I'm just telling you, I think there are some guys in the 6K range, including, we'll get there because we're going to go to 9K next, but can I just say that thread that I did last night, I dropped this in the SportsLine Discord late last night as well. Mike, I started the thread at 10 o'clock. And it was basically what I said was, hey, there's a guy that's got a disrespectful number. Does anybody want to guess it? And we had a lot of people participate. Like a lot. It was a really good thread because people were not only dropping names, but they were dropping some analysis too. And anyway, somebody ended up after a while guessing Grillo at 75 to 1. I said, yeah, that's correct. But in the midst of that, somebody mentioned David Lipsky, who, by the way, is in the 6K range. At the time, on DK, that's the only place that actually had odds out on Sunday night. He was 450 to 1. Now, if you look at Lipsky, we'll talk about him later, but 4 great tournaments in a row, like clearly kind of like has turned things around and looks to profile based on the last 4 tournaments, small sample size, looks to profile pretty well. Can I just tell you how things change? And Mike, I know you know this, but those that are out there thinking, hey, Sunday night to Monday, maybe not a huge difference. He is already down. Lipsky, I'm not saying he's going to win, but from 450 to 1 to anywhere between 125 and 170 to 1. Like, it's just completely crashed. And that happens to a lot of numbers, but I think I'm going to start this Sunday night thing quite a bit. Mike, you see that a lot, right? Is this why you try to get to lines early in golf?
Generally, yes. And some of those situations when you're going on an extreme like that, which a lot of people want the sweat of riding it out, but there are scenarios where you do that, where you're essentially getting 7, 6, anywhere from probably 3 to 10% ROI by just simply clicking the cash out button before the tournament starts. If you get extreme movement at that point. So, and for me, when I'm betting in heavy volume and grinding it, like I live for a 3% ROI. So like that's sign me up. Right. So yes, definitely looking for opportunities like that.
All right. Let's see. Let's go to the 9K range. A lot of interesting names in here, Mike. Well, the 9K range to me is peppered with a ton of talent, but it's just we're not 100% sure how the talent is playing right now. Josh, pull that 9K range up for us. We've got, Hideki Matsuyama, Robert McIntyre, Jordan Spieth, a lot of guys that are very talented, have some questions, particularly course fit questions. Then we get to Aaron Rai, Harry Hall, Jake Knapp, Akshay Bhatia, Lucas Glover's in the 8K range. Aaron Rai has won this tournament, won it last year, I believe. Mike, who do you like in the 9K range?
I like Aaron Rai. I like Harry Hall. They have some interesting things going on because they're like polar opposites in a couple of ways. So Aaron Rai, talking about him, greens and regulation, hitting fairways, like as good as it gets, right? Avoids bogeys, but he avoids bogeys, but his 3-putt avoidance is horrific. So that part's interesting and doesn't quite check the box there. I do like him though. And then Harry Hall, I like Harry Hall as well. Number 1 in 3-putt avoidance. He has the ability to go score. The problem with him is he hasn't been great at greens and regulation and hitting fairways. So
yeah,
both of them kind of have some good spots and some bad spots that I'm interested in, but I like those two. From a skill set standpoint, I think that Robert McIntyre is still very good at 9,600. And then the guy that I for sure played a lot of last week that just let us all down in a big way on Sunday. I'm going right back to Akshay at 9K. I really look, if he wasn't going to win, I actually wanted him to do what he did on Sunday, for that to be the last thing in people's minds, pull that ownership number down just a little bit. I am going to be back on Akshay Bhatia again.
I was going to ask you about Akshay. Yeah, that was an incredibly disappointing Sunday for him. By the way, update on Junior Caminero. Jeff Stenberg says Caminero, dinger, that Grillo parlay from Mike Miller is halfway home. That is actually pretty incredible, Mike.
Halfway home with a very positive cash out value if you have the option now.
Mike, if you actually made that bet, it would be like, not that you're actually going to cash out, but I would be very interested to see what that cash out option is. That is really, truly incredible that 5 minutes later, that has hit. Mike Miller celebrating his hit. Hey, we bring the early edge to the early wedge as much as we can, but let's get back on script. Let me ask you about Jake Knapp. You had Akshay disappoint you early. I had Jake Knapp sort of disappoint me late. I would say that he's not necessarily the best course fit. He's not extremely inaccurate off the tee, but he could sometimes have issues there. But I do think from a talent standpoint and from a field standpoint, Jake Knapp makes a lot of sense. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so that is, you laid it out perfectly. He's not a great course fit, and it's still going to be a birdie fest. But on talent alone, pedigree, and the way he has played, like, he's top 10 player in this field. And I don't think that's being crazy saying that. Like, I think that, well, in fact, let me look at, if you just look at total strokes gained over the last 24 rounds, he's 7th in this field.
Right.
And some of the other guys that are there, Ben Griffin, Keegan Bradley, Matt Fitzpatrick, Harry Hall, Emiliano Grillo, Robert McIntyre, just, a lot of the guys that have played really well, or just the big names all year. So it maps to him fitting. I would have no problem playing Jake Knapp. I'm not going to get to him the way I build and the way I model things. It's going to show that he's a little overpriced for how he grades out per the model, but I'm never going to get mad at someone for playing just an extremely talented golfer. Right.
I want to comment on your comment. Mike Miller says it's an $8.28 cash out on a $2 wager. He says, no, thanks. But Mike, that's over 4X of his investment, which just tells you the book's scared here. They want you to take the cash out.
Yeah, they certainly do. That's very good. I mean, it's what, like 300% ROI? Like 315%.
That's good stuff. Let me ask you about one more guy in the 9K range, Jordan Spieth, and Hideki Matsuyama. Like Hideki is a guy that you've played in the past, and Jordan's a guy that I played a couple of times over the last month or so. Your thoughts on those two guys? Because just from a name value standpoint, people will look their way. Not that they'll be owned, but they'll look their way at least.
Yes. So I want to be there on Spieth. I want to be. I think Jordan Spieth is close, and at 9,400, my problem is I'm getting a lot more Harry Hall initially, but I think he's close. The tee to green numbers over the last 10 tournaments really have been pretty good. I mean, we're talking about US Open, the Memorial, the Open, like he's gaining tee to green in a lot of these, right? Yeah, I'm not playing Hideki. I can't get there right now. The driver's not been good. Like the off the tee stuff has not been good. And I just think the scoring's too high for Hideki. I want Hideki when the winning score is like 8 under at a really difficult golf course. That's when I want to play Hideki.
Totally fair. I'm looking at the 9K range, and if I do play those two 10K guys, it gives me an opportunity to skip the 9K range. I think I'm going to be largely skipping it because I do think Aaron Rai is going to have a little bit too much ownership. We'll talk about that more on Wednesday. I just have a feeling that's just going to be a comfy click for people. And I think Knapp's okay. I think Akshay's okay. I'm not like super enthusiastic about playing either of them. And if Rai's going to be, big ownership, I'm not playing that either. So I might do, at least for like a primary lineup, two 10K guys, the two we talked about, and then skip down to the 8K or for that matter, probably 7K range. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's very valid. I think that, you can live in the 9K. Again, tune in on Wednesday as always, but like, I think the ownership for me is going to dictate my path forward. But I think that you really can skip the 9K range altogether. There's just so many golfers to throw in the 7K range that like when I'm sorting just like by my rankings and my model here, like it's just 7K guy after 7K guy peppered in with these 9s right now. And like they should, some of these 9K guys should be 8K and a lot of these 7K guys should be 8K.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let's talk about the 8K range. There's a guy at the top of that range that is going to be very, very clickable. We'll talk about that, the rest of the guys in the 8K range, after one more message from our partners.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver touchdown.
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year.
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals.
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
It's time to hit the 8K range for the Wyndham Championship. And Mike, it's the top of this range that I'm very intrigued by. I think the bottom of the 8K range, I'm okay with some of the names, but I do want to get your opinion sort of at the top here. It starts with Lucas Glover, and I'm trying to find ways to fade Lucas Glover. Ownership would be that potential way to fade him because, Mike, one thing we didn't discuss is this is not the tournament to like play a popular guy. I mean, you can, it's not the end of the world, but like pivoting in a tournament like this just makes a lot of sense to me. But there are a couple of guys I really like, and Lucas Glover, not a guy I play a lot, but talk me off of him if you want. I do like him at 8,900. Kitayama, I think, is an interesting case study. He's obviously playing super well. Won last week. Is that a point against him or a point for him? Siwoo Kim feels like he profiles really well. Adam Scott kind of had a really bad round one, but really kind of came on the next at least couple of rounds. Your thoughts on the top of this range, and who do you like just in general in the 8K?
Yeah, so Lucas Glover is someone that I think you always have to be extremely sensitive to, course fit, and as far as when you're going to play him, when you're not. I do think he's a good fit. Am I always going to feel a little uneasy almost paying 9K for Lucas Glover? Probably. Having said that, the price point in this field, the way a lot of guys are priced, it's probably warranted. And I do think he is playable at that price point, which is honestly like if you just told me that without me really diving into the data and looking at it, I would have said no way. I would have said maybe 7,900 I could play some Lucas Glover. But I do think it's warranted. And when talking about total strokes gained, he's actually 11th in this field in total strokes gained still, which is pretty impressive because some of those events are not great fits for him that he's played relatively well at. So out of the two, I am far more likely to play Lucas Glover than Kurt Kitayama. I will be fading Kurt Kitayama after what I saw last week. I know he's had 2 good tournaments in a row. I know that he is someone that is essentially the best player not named Emiliano Grillo on approach in this field when he's playing right. I think that the ownership will be there. I think that he's highly motivated and locked in after what he did last week. He's got a huge opportunity in front of him in FedEx points.
Yeah.
I just want to fade the guy coming off the win the very next week in that spot.
It's interesting you say what you said about the FedEx Cup points, because I think I'm not looking at it right now. Josh, you can correct me later. I think he's 52nd, which I don't know. I just thought he'd be just a touch higher with respect to the FedEx Cup standings. Either way, like obviously, like that's a sort of comfy place to be in, but you certainly want to make your way inside the top 30. So like, again, a lot of people have points to play for. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, he's 53rd. You have to be inside the top 50 to play the BMW Championship. Guys that he's competing with this week that are very, very much right there. Aaron Rye, Tony Finau's not far off in 60th. Ricky Fowler's right there. Jordan Spieth's just ahead of him at 50. Bud Colley at 51. Wyndham Clark, who is withdrawn from this event, is 48th. Jake Knapp is 47th. Harry Hall's 46th. So there's a lot of guys, some of them priced very similar in DFS, right in this range. It's a big week for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, top 50 also gets you into the signature events. Anybody in the 8K range that you really like? I mean, there are guys after, I don't know if you have an opinion on Adam Scott or guys like Ricky Fowler, but Denny is in this range. I think a lot of people want to click that button. Ryan Gerard is a guy who just won an alt event, and I know you're kind of fond of him. Who else in this 8K range do you like?
So, honestly, I'm kind of buying into the Ricky Fowler recently. I know that
I don't hate it.
18th at the, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I don't hate it. I'm never like, I don't know if I've ever played Ricky Fowler, like at least not this year. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was looking at it and I'm like, I feel like I kind of want to play him this week. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and part of wanting to play him is we know that Glover's going to be a little bit used, and we know that Kitayama is going to get some attention after what he just did. I can save a little bit of money, still have some of those very similar builds, but 4th at the 3, or what was he? 28th at the 3M, 14th at the Open, which was a little bit of a surprise, 18 at John Deere, but really kind of gaining a lot in a lot of interesting areas. So I think that out of everyone here, I mean, I know guys like Spieth and Fowler, like we're used to having big names, and sometimes we're maybe afraid to play them. Like, I'm not playing him at this point with the name value, but he's sitting 61st. Like it would really, I know that he's made a lot of money in his career from endorsements and on course, but getting inside that top 50 is actually really, really important to Ricky Fowler. And, it's not something we're necessarily used to, but I think he's playing well. And out of all those guys in that range, I think he's probably the one I'm most likely to play.
If you have questions about a particular player, by the way, those of you who are watching, go ahead and put that player in the chat. I'll get a yes or no from you on Ryan Gerard and Denny McCarthy, Mike.
So McCarthy is interesting. I know that Sobel mentioned him a little bit. I'm going to be out on it. I haven't liked what I've seen in terms of hitting fairways and greens and regulation. Just hasn't done much for me. Like he's someone I'm fine. If he beats me, then good. Congratulations. Like I'm not going to go there. Gerard is someone I backed a lot kind of early in the year. I could see it. He's someone that I think is going to be very streaky in his career. And when he plays well, that's when I want to back him. Now, have we seen a big enough sample size of playing well? No, it was like one event. But when he was right, he was right. So if you want to be early on it again, I think it's okay.
Okay. And by the way, I wasn't on, I'm a Max Grazerman guy. I wasn't on him last week. He crashed and burned. Mike, are you going to be playing Max Grazerman this week?
I am not planning to play Max Grazerman this week. Let me see where I actually have him, but my guess, no, I won't. And why he's getting penalized is the off the tee stuff. Fairways and greens, just not doing it.
Yeah, I agree. The off the tee stuff for Max as well. Let's go to the 7K range. There are a handful of guys I like, Mike. I'll mention some of the guys I like, and we'll see if we have any crossover here. Okay, a couple of them aren't necessarily the best course fits. They have popped here to some degree before, and they like Nikolai Højgaard is really kind of who I'm addressing before I get to some of the guys that are like actually good course fits. He's a guy that can be extremely wayward off the tee, but every other box he seemed to check for me, whether it was Bermuda, whether it was mid-iron play, whether it was the recent ball striking. And he has one bad finish and one good finish here of the 2 times he played. I just think he's a really interesting player that not a lot of people are going to pay much attention to at 7,900. Pearson Coody, another guy that I don't think people pay attention to. He was really good last week. Bud Cauley, I don't really know what to do with him. I may just lay off, even though I think he's a great course fit. I'm on Emiliano Grillo. I think Jackson Koiven is interesting. I think Chris Kirk is very interesting. And of course, I'm just going to be on William Mao again, because that's what I do with William Mao. Any of those names ring to you? And then we'll get to some of the names that you like.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Emiliano Grillo is by far the most mispriced golfer in this field. We'll remind people the last time I really truly said that, other than last week on him where he was Harris English when he finished second. We all talked about Harris English being just obviously mispriced. That is what's going on with Grillo here. So I'm playing him for sure. But it's really a repeat of last week. The 3 guys I played in lineups together last week, I'm playing again. It's Emiliano Grillo, Kevin Roy, and Andrew Putnam. All 3 of those guys, 7,500 for Grillo, 7K for Roy, 7,100 for Putnam. I really like all 3 of them. And if you play all 3 of them together, you can play the 2 10K guys that you want, whichever 2 you want. And you're still talking about 73 to 7,700 for your last spot. Like that's going to be one of my lineups. I can tell you for sure this week.
There's some questions in the chat. Rick Funkin says Grillo top 40 is plus 105. Yep. It's interesting, Rick. When I gave out that early wedge play on the early edge this morning, I was considering giving out a Grillo top 20 pick. I'll probably give out something in that regard later on in the week, but I don't hate that, Mike. I'm sure you're probably okay with that one.
Definitely okay with it. Gonna play it myself. Something just popped up to me on a lineup that I'm gonna build. But how about Thorpe? Let everyone down last week. I don't know how I didn't play him, honestly. I liked it. I just didn't get him in a lineup for whatever reason. I didn't. Lost 7.1 strokes tee to green. Just wasn't a good week, wasn't a good fit. I'm willing to forget about it. I'm willing to throw it out, partially because I didn't play him and didn't get burnt by it. I actually got helped by it. But he's 7,700 in this field. And I mean, there's a lot of green there off the tee, and we're sitting here talking about how it's kind of important to be good off of the tee, right? So yeah, sign me up at 7,700.
Yeah, so I think from a DFS standpoint, especially if people are just so mad about last week and he's not going to get the ownership he probably deserves, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, part of me says, well, it's not necessarily the best course fit because he can bomb it out there, but he's also pretty accurate off the tee as well. And you are going to have to pull driver here every once in a while. And I don't know. I think I don't want to say I'm pro Michael Thorbjornsen because I was the one that was like so all in on him last week for the first time, I think. And he just crashed and burned immediately. So I don't want to jinx him, but I do like your Michael Thorbjornsen call. A couple more names before we get to the 6K range. First of all, there's some big names in this range that I think people are just surprised. Well, they're not surprised, but it's just surprising to see them. Like Max Homa is 7,400. Tony Finau is 7,400. Let's see. Keith Mitchell, 7,500. There was also a question about Jesper Svensson. I kind of like Jesper Svensson, but I'm not going to play him. Great ball striker, of course. Any of those names jumping out to you, Mike?
I mean, Svensson, he's been okay. I don't mind it. Andrew Novak's talented as well. I think he's far more talented than the price point. He's one of those guys that just doesn't seem to get the price moving up there. Look, I think a lot of those guys that you mentioned are playable. The issue that I have, and I'm vocal about it. I keep very narrow player pools generally. I'm fine with winning all of the money or not returning any generally. Like it's just kind of the way that I play. So I like to really keep it narrow. And I also like to be super transparent on it. I'm playing Grillo and I'm playing Kevin Roy again for sure. Those are the two guys, 7,500 and 7K. When I'm doing that, unless I'm just intentionally going to leave a bunch of salary, it's just not going to leave a lot of room for these other guys in my lineup. And it's not that I don't like them, but I have, again, Grillo is in the top 10 for me in terms of overall win equity. Like by that metric, Grillo should be basically 9K in this field, right? So he's just going in every single lineup I play. And I'll probably say the same thing about Kevin Roy. So I'm just playing those two. There's a number of those guys that are very, very playable. I'm just going to choose to get different elsewhere.
I like how our recent winner on the Junior Caminero home run, Mike Miller, he says, only 6 likes on this video. Come on, people, smash it. Well, the truth is, Mike, we're actually a little bit higher than that, but we're not high enough. You got to just like refresh the page or whatever. But we're still not at a ton of likes. So Mike, I appreciate the vigilance. Everybody hit the like button. If you could always review the podcast if you can as well. It's under the early edge tab, but you can always, when you're doing the review, which takes about, 5 or 10 seconds, you can always write a word about the early wedge when you're doing that. So really appreciate you, Mike and Zach and Ryan and Steven, everybody for being in here. Okay. A couple more names. I'm definitely in on Chris Kirk. And I do think guys like Ryan Fox, potentially, but certainly Christian Bezuidenhout are going to be popular. So therefore, I'm probably not going to play CBS, but I do think he's a good play. I think he's maybe a good bet for our betting show tomorrow. Any thoughts on those names?
Yes. CBS is another one that just really stands out as being mispriced. At 7,200, again, I on raw talent alone, the guy could be 8,200 in this field, and I wouldn't think anything different, right? So he's definitely underpriced. I was worried he was going to miss the cut. I played him. I had a 6-6 lineup last week. He was in it. I really thought we were headed towards a miscut for a second, but boy, he really finished strong on Sunday. I think he shot like 7 under on Sunday. Beautiful round. Really reminding you the guy can just go make a ton of birdies at any moment. So I like him. I think the field is now well aware though that he's too cheap. I expect him to come with pretty decent levels of ownership. And I would play like a guy that doesn't get played that I like that I've talked about is Kevin Roy. I'm going to play Kevin Roy over Bezuidenhout.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I'm going to play probably Chris Kirk over Bezuidenhout, even though Kirk will get a little bit of attention as well. I'll play William Mao. I think Rio Hisatsune is going to be pretty popular. I'll just tell everybody I'm completely out on Rio this week in DFS, probably in the betting market as well. Let's move to the 6K range where, Mike, typically in this range, you don't like a lot of players. And honestly, the way the pricing is, there's really no reason for you to go down here. But can I just rattle off some names? Wait, is Doug Gim really in the 6K range? Am I reading that? Okay, he is. He's 6,800. Okay, so I'm going to rattle off some names, Mike. And you tell me if any of these names pop up. And honestly, knowing you, maybe 0 of the names are popping up in terms of the modeling that you're doing. Adam Svensson. Pop in a little bit here and there. David Lipsky, who again, I started the show by saying I bet him at 450 to 1 last night. He's now down to between 125 and 170. Doug Gim, I'm a little shaky on that because I do worry about the putter, but he's only 6,800. Ben Coles, Chan Kim, Tristan Lawrence, Brian Campbell, 2-time winner. Let's see, Carson Young, David Skins. I'm a little shaky on him. I've liked him the last couple of weeks, but maybe not the best course fit. And then I'll go Chesson Hadley, Paul Peterson, who I absolutely love, played him last week as well. Zach Blair, John Pock. I think all of those names in a tournament like this, course fit included, I think some of these guys are actually live. Did any of those names ring to you at all?
Some of them did. I've got some others of my own, but I am a little sad that Rick isn't here because I actually want to participate in the 6K range this week.
Wow.
It's a first. It admittedly is the upper 6K range. So one metric that I use this week is going to just simply be greens in regulation gained. I think that we've all kind of established that hitting greens in regulation is going to be important here. What if I told you the guy that ranks number 1 in greens in regulation in this field over the last 24 rounds is $6,900?
And who is that person?
Victor Perez.
Ooh, Victor Perez.
$6,900 in this field. If we're talking strokes gained approach, 12th over the last 24 rounds. 27th in total strokes gained. He's certainly not the 27th most expensive golfer. Victor Perez at 6,900. I could absolutely get there. Lee Hodges, 6,900 as well. Another guy, again, just an approach player. Very, very good approach player. Patrick Fishburne, we've both played him a few times this year. You just mentioned him. Third in greens and regulation in this field. Ben Coles, I think you mentioned his name. Another elite approach player. Can't putt, but elite approach player. Gives himself an opportunity there. Carson Young played well last week. Didn't want to back him in any sort of match, but look, he's certainly better than 6,600.
Yeah, the only demerit for him, or big one, would be the around the green play for Carson Young. But yeah, that was one of my names as well. I mean, Mike, when you're doing your roster construction here, are you actually getting to this range?
So I am and I'm not. That's why I love like things that they're not arbitrary. Like they're clearly defined, but like, what's the difference between 6,900 and 7K? I'm firmly telling you that I'm playing Kevin Roy at 7K in like every lineup.
Right.
So yeah, I'm kind of getting there. There's three guys I just mentioned at 6,900 that I could play alongside them or in replacement. Another guy that's hot right now, Matty Schmid. I played him a little bit in the Open Championship in the Scottish. I say hot right now. We're talking T61, T69, but was T17 at Genesis. When you're that cheap, making cuts in a row consecutively like that is actually classified as being hot, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Rosner, Ryan Shepard mentioning Rosner, 14 cuts on the PGA made in a row. The upside hasn't really been there for him over the last 4 tournaments or so, but that's something to consider. Again, Mike, I think there's a lot of guys in the 6K range that are, I'm not saying they're legit, but I think they're guys that can get you over the line and get you over a cut. Let me ask you one last question before we wrap up. Who do you like to win? Like in terms of the board, forget about who you like to win. Are you betting the top of the board? Or I think what I'm going to end up doing for the best bet show tomorrow is kind of peppering the middle to the long shot range. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Peppering middle to long shot. And a lot of the guys that I'm playing in DFS, I will be playing in finishing position markets, like top 30, top 40s. That's, one thing that a lot of the community loves to bet, like make the cut parlays, things like that. I would put your DFS lineup in every week. Like if you're winning decent money in DFS, you're not going to win decent money without having a 6 of 6 generally. I think that, and it gives you interesting payouts on some of your sportsbook make the cut parlays just because of the nature of DFS with the salary cap, right? So it's not like you're parlaying the top 8 favorites, 6 favorites, in that. So it's an interesting thing to do. I effectively do that, but I play them as straight bets via top 40, including ties is typically how I play each of my 6 golfers.
Great advice. Always pulling out an extra nugget from Mike McClure. He'll be back with us on Wednesday at 4:00 for the live chat. Hopefully you all will be there because that's a very valuable live chat, especially when Mike McClure is on the show. And then, of course, we got our best bet show tomorrow at 7:00. Ladies and gentlemen, that was great. We got the Wyndham Championship. Then we got the playoffs. There's a lot going on in golf. We're 38 days away from football season. We got this crazy MLB slate that I know Mike's a part of. A lot going on. Appreciate you all joining us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at 7:00 for the best bets early wedge show. Until then, have a great night, everybody.